So it started off about 3 years ago. We have a group in Seattle called CIRCUS, and that stands for Cyber Incident Response Coalition and Analysis Sharing. It's a grassroots effort by companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Starbucks, because Starbucks is really the critical infrastructure of the world, and we all get together with the hospitals, the cities, etc. But what makes that even better is that we have the FBI, the National Guard, the Department of Homeland Security all participating in that forum, and we share on a regular basis what's going on in our industries from a cybersecurity perspective. We share scenarios and walk through those scenarios with each other to figure out how would you respond to that and leverage each other's experiences. As part of that, I learned about the mission of the National Guard, and their mission, surprised me, was around cybersecurity. And at the time, Lieutenant Colonel Jem Wells shared with us some examples of what they are doing for the Department of Defense. And as part of this, we developed these trusted relationships, so we tend to share a little bit more than we typically would with people we don't know. And I started talking to Lieutenant Colonel Jem Welsh about, could there be a possibility of you guys doing a penetration test at Snohomish County PUD? And we joked that 2 years later and 3 lieutenant colonels, we finally made it happen. One governor, fortunately, Governor Inslee, signed off on this, and that was a great opportunity for us to really develop the process and procedures in place that were needed for the state of Washington to be able to do this. As General Tui was talking about, every state has their own laws, and we've talked about that with different states, about how we did this, and our templates will work for them, but there's different laws that we're going to have to talk through. So why the Guard? The Guard, as you might know, has some really amazing people that work for them, right? So they're well-trained Department of Defense employees. They are both red team and blue team trained. But they also work for companies like T-Mobile, Amazon, Starbucks, Microsoft. And so they understand the day-to-day operations of how cybersecurity is done at companies. And so it really left a trust feeling for me. These guys know what my staff is going through, as well as knowing how to do the tests in a way that's not going to impact us. That's a big concern a lot of utilities have, is when you have these penetration tests go on, you want to make sure that's not going to interfere with your day-to-day operations, cause generation sites to go down, those types of things. There's an opportunity for us to also educate the National Guard on how utilities operate and our control systems, how our control systems are architected, our security posture and architecture that we have in place, the types of controls that we have in place to secure the grid. And so we saw this as a win-win opportunity for us, and with that we started the journey. In hindsight, what's really been interesting for me is that the operation that was performed almost exactly mimicked what happened at Ukraine. They came in through phishing after they tested our walls and said, yeah, your walls are high enough, tall enough, thick enough. But they got in through phishing within 22 minutes. It only took one click for someone to get in. Once your walls are down, your defense is much harder. And as part of that, they ended up getting into our SCADA system. Now for us, we have a smart grid lab, which acts as a pre-production environment for everything from our substations all the way to our SCADA system. So if we have new relays we want to test out, etc., we test them out in there, we configure it. We have all the software in place to make sure it's going to work stem to stern. That became our cyber range for this exercise or operation. And that was very important because it gave them the target that they could go in without interfering with our operations. And that also let us test some security changes in architecture that we were planning on putting in place in our production environment. Because it was designed how we were going to implement our network segmentation. So this gets down to how did this benefit us and how did it benefit the National Guard? Because it has to be a win-win situation. And how it benefited us, my staff was very confident. We'd had a lot of reviews done. Everyone gave us A+. The team was all thumbs up and happy. But I was concerned that we were overconfident. As you heard earlier, it's not if, but when, right? And for most utilities, we believe it's already happened. And so you're constantly looking, have we been penetrated? So I wanted to make sure that my staff understood that, we're good, but we can always be better. So most IT professionals and security professionals think like engineers, not like hackers. And what the National Guard brought into us was they brought the mindset of a hacker. And they helped educate us on what that mindset is and how a hacker thinks and how they're going to get in. And they demonstrated to my team things that they didn't think were possible, how possible they really were. And so that really made a difference the way my staff thinks about cybersecurity today. It's not, oh, that can't be done anymore. Benjamin, that's impossible. It also helped us learn what we could do better from a monitoring and different controls we could put in place. So we made the changes that we need to make to help deal with these scenarios and additional scenarios. And I'll share quickly, a lot of the changes we made for that scenario, that operation, also helped us with a later event, an insider threat event. Because of the controls we put in place, helped us detect that insider threat event and remediate it much faster. So just because it was a single scenario doesn't mean it's going to be for just that one event, and that's the only one out of the thousands of ways someone can attack you. It benefited the Guard because, well, one, they learned about us. They learned about the critical infrastructure of the utility, how it's architected, how we operate. We're no different than Duke, no different than Pacific Corps, no different than Puget Sound Energy in our area, right? The way we're architected, the controls we put in place, some of those are regulatory driven, right, are very similar. So they learned what those were and how to operate, how we operate. So that it gave them a new set of control systems to see and kind of look at. It also gave them a new practice range, right? It gave them a cyber range that they hadn't been able to get into and test out their skills and improve their own skills in a different environment. So we saw this as a win-win situation for everyone. It really improved my staff's capabilities, and hopefully it improved the National Guard's as well. And it has developed a partnership for us. We participate in joint exercises, so Emerald Down, Cyber Guard. When we had the insider threat, I laid out our plan with my team, what we need to do, how we're going to respond to this insider threat. I met with some of the folks from the National Guard and said, hey guys, can you help me? Give me some insight on how we might respond to this. What are we missing? And because they knew how we were architected and our environment so well, they were able to give me some good feedback on how to better mitigate the insider threat. They also, we've worked quite a bit as a reference for the Cyber Guard or National Guard to participate at other utilities and how the operation went, how we structured it, what to think about, so that they get the value out of it as well. And other state organizations have contacted us about how their Guard could actually do operations like this as well. In addition to our partnership, we created a Washington State's Critical Infrastructure Cyber Guide for companies, utilities that don't really know how to get their cyber program kicked off the ground. That's really the hardest. That first step, a lot of times, is really hard for companies. And so we created this guide for smaller utilities especially to help them get kick-started and made us as a resource that they can call upon to help them kind of start their programs. We participate in an annual cyber summit that we put on together. So as you can see here, there's a ton of collaboration between our organizations to help build the relationship and the partnership so that we know how to respond in future events. This operation has been shared, there's probably been about a dozen articles written on it now. I've shared it at numerous conferences with the Western Electric Institute, with the Edison Institute, Large Public Power Council, American Public Power Association, right? So all the utility organizations I can participate in, I've shared this operation from, because this is all about collaboration and partnership. Because I truly believe that is the only way we're going to make our nation stronger from a cybersecurity perspective, is learning from each other and learning how we can do things better so that we don't have to each repeat each other's mistakes. And I think, the question here today is how can the Cyber Guard help protect the nation from a cybersecurity defense? I think they've already started. I think the operation that we did has been shared with almost every utility in the United States. There's actually going to be an article in next month that'll be an international magazine going out to 100,000 people within the world talking about this operation. So I believe that the National Guard is already helping protect our nation and making us stronger. Thank you.